Basically, I think that what we ended up with was that the outlook is what all of us are going to make it be, right? Is that we've given so much power to our politicians, to political parties, to really shape the discourse and the path of the country, that if we want to change South Africa going into the future and we want to create a country that all of us can live in and are proud of, then it's going to require a lot more intervention by particularly those of us who are powerful in our areas, So there were lots of business leaders in the room today, people who have a great deal of influence, and it's time for people like that to start leading the conversation, to start generating also conversation within their own organizations, and it's through those efforts I think that we'll be able to craft a South Africa that we're proud of. But if we keep waiting on politicians or political parties to reform themselves, it's going to keep us really on more of the same path that we've been on.
Now, the big discussion in South Africa, ongoing discussion, is around the land issue. Even the ANC, the ruling ANC, held a summit on it recently. But do you believe that they actually have a plan on how to redistribute the land?
I think the great thing about the way in which the land issue is then going to be dealt with is it's going through a parliamentary process. It's being dealt with the Constitutional Review Committee in Parliament, and that committee has gotten over 1 million submissions from ordinary South Africans about their views on the land issue, whether they feel that land should be whether the Constitution should be amended to allow for land expropriation without compensation, and there's also going to be a number of public hearings throughout the country. So this is an opportunity really for South Africans to input directly into a political conversation that's happening in Parliament without having to go through political parties. So that the ANC, I think, has, and we've seen this over the years that the ANC has been in power, is it hasn't really had a plan, a strategy for how to approach land reform, land restitution or land redistribution in any way. And we can see that the institutions for land reform, redistribution, restitution are barely functional. And so it has a lot to answer for. But, we don't need to rely on the ANC to have its act together in order for us to reach some sort of resolution on this issue. I think that this parliamentary process that's going to start in August is really an opportunity for all South Africans to influence the way in which we then deal with the land issue in future, because we know that it's a critical issue that wasn't resolved at the time of the transition, and it's really important really for ensuring sustainable livelihoods for the majority of South Africans.
Now, we've been in democratic South Africa for the last 24 years. Don't you think, and nothing has been done as yet, don't you think this is just talk to garner votes for the elections next year?
Well, certainly it could be that, right? And politicians, one of the things we were saying in the room earlier was that, politicians are self-interested. Politicians want to hold on to power, want to get power, and they want to hold on to it. And it is the responsibility of citizens to then make sure that they use that power responsibly or take that power away from them if they're not using it responsibly. And so I do think that all the different political parties are going to use this as some kind of campaign tool, as a football really, in order to garner support for the elections in 2019. But I think that the value of the process will be dependent on the extent to which ordinary citizens hold the politicians accountable for coming up with something useful out of this process. If we come up with nothing at the end of this, but more of the same, then I really think it'll be a failure of everybody who was supposed to hold the politicians in Parliament accountable to it. And like I say, people have been able to make submissions, over 1 million of them, which shows that South Africans are invested in this issue. South Africans are interested in this issue. And so we must just keep on being in there and not get tired. I think so much happens and people just get fatigued, like, okay, I'm tired now. And so part of our responsibility really, and I think particularly people in business, people with any power where they are, is to keep an eye on this issue and to continue contributing to it. And it is then that we will put the kind of pressure we need to onto political parties and onto politicians to be able to get something constructive out of it.